What up, Hyperchange? Welcome to another episode. Today I'm going to be talking about Snapchat's Q3 2018 earnings. We're going to break down all of the numbers. I'm going to go through the highlights of the quarter, and then we're going to talk about what is next for Snapchat. Because as you'll notice, the stock is down from about $27 at the time of its IPO just a year and a half ago to now around all-time lows of just $6 per share. As the company has struggled to, reach profitability, to grow its user base, everything seems to be heading in the wrong direction. So let's check out what happened in Q3. How many people are logging into the app every day on average during the quarter of 186 million, which is, by itself, a huge number. That makes it one of the largest social platforms on the internet. But one of the problems is that this daily active user number is in decline. It has declined for the second sequential quarter in a row. So Snapchat's user base is actually shrinking, and this is a trend they expect to continue in Q4 of this year. So this is the most worrisome thing of Snap's business, is less and less people are using its platform every single day, and this is translating into weaker financials than expected. As you'll see, the company's year-over-year growth rate in daily active users has fallen to just 5%. So on a year-over-year basis, it is still growing, but that could change next quarter. And if you look at the timing of this, I've said this a ton of times, but it's just too easy to point out. I mean, Instagram, the second they launched in Q3 2016, has catalyzed a massive deceleration in Snapchat. Zuckerberg copied Snap's most popular stories feature and brought a ton of that engagement to Instagram. The revenue growth, it is still growing revenue rapidly as they're just showing more and more ads to their users, but even that is decelerating, and you have to wonder how much can revenue continue to grow if their user base continues to decline. But I will say, the revenue growth did actually sort of flatline a little bit, only to about 43%, down from 44% in Q2, but they are predicting a massive deceleration in Q4. We're going to get to that in a second. If we take a look at the actual financials from the quarter, you'll see that Snapchat posted revenue of $298 million, which was up about 43% year over year, as I said, so pretty strong growth on the top line. But once again, their operating loss did improve, but the company is losing $323 million on $298 million in revenue. So Snapchat's operating margin is more than negative 100%. So they're nowhere near profitability. And so this is what has me so concerned about the company, is that if your user base is growing, your business is sort of stalling out, you're nowhere near profitability. It's just not looking good. And if we take a look at, on an annual basis, what's happening with Snapchat, I took the midpoint of their guidance for Q4, and that indicates that they're about on track to hit about $1.158 billion in revenue, but they're going to lose about $1.3 billion in revenue. So that negative 100% operating margin is intact for the full year. So Snapchat is just bleeding a ton of cash. Growth rate, this was a company that before Instagram started copying it in its heyday, just a couple years ago, was growing almost 600% revenue growth. Then it more than doubled revenue in 2017, but then it looks like we're seeing just a massive deceleration to 40% revenue growth in 2018. And what's so concerning is that for Q4 in the guidance, they're guiding just between 24% to 33% revenue growth for Q4. So my guess is for 2019, we see growth slow dramatically to probably 20%, maybe even less revenue growth in 2019. In terms of cash position, the company is continuing to burn through its IPO cash. They burned through $1.8 billion in the 6 quarters since they've IPO'd. But I will give them a little credit here that in the last 3 or 4 quarters, they've slowed their burn rate pretty dramatically. And so I think that's a very impressive sign. And I think if Snap continues to grow revenue, then its burn rate will continue to decrease. So they're actually not quite as desperate to raise capital as I thought, because their burn rate is slowing. That's maybe one silver lining of the whole quarter. If we take a look at their GAAP gross margin, they did have, they posted 34% gross margins this quarter, which is still nowhere near what other social media and software companies are posting, but that is a huge improvement from the negative 1% GAAP gross margin in Q3 2017. So, as they shift to programmatic ads, as they figure out their advertising model, Snap is actually improving its gross margin. So that is another definitely good sign. So those are the numbers. Now let's take a look at some of the highlights of Snap's quarter operationally. They had a Snapchat show, James Corden's Next James Corden, which won 2 Emmy Awards, which is produced by CBS. So I thought that was pretty awesome that they actually are showing some traction in sort of the critically acclaimed world for their Snapchat original shows. Additionally, they have Viacom, who is committed to creating 10 more new original Snapchat shows. So this is sort of Snapchat trying to become sort of like a Netflix-esque of mobile sort of content company. And so they're partnering with these big media brands to develop original shows specifically designed for Snapchat's vertical viewing format. And so I think that is promising. And additionally, the most exciting partnership I thought Snap announced this quarter was when they teamed up with Amazon so that you can just pull out your Snapchat camera, look at a product, and then Amazon will pull it up and potentially, and then just right from there, you can buy that product on Amazon. So that's a really frictionless way that Snapchat can start generating revenue from beyond advertising into e-commerce, which I think has huge potential and definitely something Snap should be doubling down on. They introduced 2 new versions of Spectacles, Nico and Veronica. They didn't give us any info on really how those sold in this PR, so I'm assuming that the Spectacles sales are still very, very small, but I do commend Snap for trying to be ahead of the curve of that smart glasses augmented reality trend. One little tidbit that I want to mention is they say Snapchatters have saved more than 200 billion snaps in memories. So memories is this feature where you can save all your snaps. It's sort of like a photo sharing app. It's sort of like a Dropbox competitor in a way. It's a cloud storage platform where people can store what they call memories, or essentially, their stories on Snapchat. And I think that, I've seen, at least personally from a ton of my friends, from my little sister, from people who use Snapchat, that they love to go back and show you, they're like, oh, remember when I went to that party, or remember when I went to that trip? Check out this memory I have. And it's all on Snapchat. So I think that makes the app a lot stickier than people think, is this sort of interesting cloud storage component they have with memories. So that's one more highlight. So that's kind of what Snap reported for the quarter. And, as I said, the stock has just absolutely been getting hammered because of these numbers. And, originally when Snap IPO'd, I was pretty bullish on the company because a ton of young people were using the app. I saw a ton of momentum, but then Instagram has absolutely squashed that momentum. And the problem with that is that Snapchat has built this business model around, in my opinion, needing around 250 million to 300 million daily active users to actually see profitability, with their very costly overhead and the way they have to pay for all of this cloud computing infrastructure to be able to send Snapchats. They just need a lot more usage on their platform for it to be a profitable business. And the problem is their daily active users are now actually declining. And so this is a trend that I just don't see how Snap can solve. I'm more and more bearish on the company as every single one of these quarterly reports comes out. So what's next for Snapchat? And this is something I've struggled with because as a standalone company, I just do not see them reaching profitability unless they can totally reinvent some aspect of their product that brings back a ton of users. And I'm not ruling that out, but they just haven't been able to innovate to get people back on their platform, and that is the key problem with Snap. But I do think the company's valuation here, with about 1.6 billion shares outstanding, about $6.50 a share, we're looking at a market cap of about 10.4 billion. In terms of price sales, 10.4 billion divided by their midpoint of 1.16 billion in 2018 revenue, it's about 9x price sales, which isn't that expensive for what should be a high margin social media business. But when you take into account the fact that the growth rate in Snapchat's revenue is declining so dramatically, this looks like a pretty expensive valuation still, unless they can really turn things around. So what is next for this company? I think that they're either going to go out of business, and it's going to be difficult, but I don't think they'll actually get there. I think somebody's actually probably going to buy them out if they can't turn this around and it continues to get cheaper. Who are the people that would buy Snapchat out? I mean, the obvious choice here is Facebook or Google because they are the leaders in social. Facebook has Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, but I do think Facebook would run into a ton of regulatory hurdles if they tried to buy Snapchat. I also think that Snapchat's ethos of sort of privacy, of no likes, of not selling all of your data, goes against Facebook. And so I just think there's a clash of cultures there. So I don't think that would be a good fit, but strategically as a social media business, Facebook makes sense. Google, they do have YouTube. They are in the social business. So I could see Google potentially being an acquisition target, but one that I think is way more likely is actually Amazon. Amazon has been trying to get into the social business. They've had a bunch of different kind of tiny social products they've launched, but they've never made a big move into the space. Snapchat would totally catapult them there. And additionally, that new partnership they launched where you can just pull out your phone and take a picture of something on Snapchat and then buy it right on Amazon seems like a very frictionless way that Amazon could make it easier to buy stuff on their platform. They could integrate deeper and deeper with Snap. So I think that's also a huge possibility. The last acquisition candidate that I could see would be Tencent, which is the Chinese company that actually took a large stake in Snapchat a little bit ago. And, they're a company that they've also taken a stake in Tesla. They obviously have ambitions to get exposure to the US market. They run WeChat, which is the largest social network in China. So they already know how to do the social business. So I could see Tencent as sort of being a dark horse acquisition candidate or a dark horse acquirer of Snapchat as well. So that sort of wraps up my, Q3 earnings. It's Halloween. Happy Halloween to all you guys out there. Snapchat's financials are definitely scary. That's why I thought this was a perfect episode to make today. I really just am struggling to figure out how this company could survive as a standalone entity without some huge breakthrough that gets people to come back to their product. So if you have any ideas, please let me know, because at the end of the day, the reason why I cover Snapchat on the channel is I'm honestly really, really rooting for them. Like, Facebook has sort of a monopoly on social media, and their ethos as a company to sell your data, to not be transparent about who's advertising on their platform, is just really rubs me the wrong way. And I love how Snapchat is fostering this community of like, just, we want you to be able to communicate with your friends and express yourself without worrying about likes, without worrying about how many people think you're cool. And I think that's a much healthier direction for social media. And so I love that vision and that part of Snapchat, but the problem is the business model is just struggling and not working. So I'm kind of at a loss for what's going to happen next other than an acquisition. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, a huge shout out to our Patreon producers and all of our supporters there. It means a ton. Keeps the lights on for Hyperchange. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.